Suppose I informed you that the United States' most adored leader led a hidden existence so controversial it would ruin any contemporary public figure in an instant. We're discussing John F. Kennedy, the individual who won over affections with his allure. Yet privately, he was managing a network of concealed romances extending to the film industry, presidential aides, and even criminal syndicates. His spouse Jacqueline was aware of each one. She observed while her partner held supposed professional discussions that were really passionate meetings. She posed happily for photographs as females much younger than her swam nude in the executive mansion's swimming area alongside her mate. A single liaison was so perilous it nearly collapsed the whole Kennedy government. But the real surprise is this. One supposed lover was killed in a professional hit mere streets away from the presidential residence. Her journal was incinerated by intelligence operatives. Another asserted she carried the leader's offspring. And prepare yourself for the tale of the teenage assistant who surrendered her innocence to JFK within Jacqueline's personal sleeping quarters. Once this presentation concludes, you'll grasp why these weren't mere casual encounters. They were deliberate gambles that might have overthrown the globe's mightiest authority. We're listing all females Kennedy purportedly romanced. And the third entry will make you doubt the entire myth of the Enchanted Era. This occurred during the era when journalists shielded officials. Ladies possessed few alternatives, and influence allowed evading nearly all repercussions. Kennedy wasn't an ordinary executive. He was youthful, strikingly attractive, possessing a charisma that attracted folks like insects to light. Jacqueline wasn't an innocent partner in ignorance. She was sharp and strategic, fully comprehending her spouse's actions. She penned once that Jack resembled her dad, a person who enjoyed the pursuit but tired of the victory, requiring ongoing validation of his appeal. Why did she remain? Why tolerate open shame and intimate disloyalty? The explanation could astonish you. But initially, let's explore the ladies who supposedly shared private episodes with the nation's supreme commander. Ellen Romach, the female too hazardous to retain. Let's commence with a title unfamiliar to many, yet one that triggered alarms across authorities. Ellen Romach was a gorgeous lady from Germany, resembling a famous actress. She wasn't merely a society figure. She was reportedly an elite escort mingling with the capital's elite influencers. Romach was said to participate in unclothed aquatic gatherings at the executive home during early 1963. But her real threat wasn't her appearance or occupation. It was her origins. Being from Germany, wedded to a military officer there, and under suspicion by investigators for possibly relaying data to overseas spies. The matter grew so grave that the Attorney General himself stepped in. He arranged for Romach's discreet expulsion to avert a defense crisis. Consider that. The leader's sibling had to conceal his brother's indiscretion since it endangered the whole nation's safety. But Romach didn't vanish without resistance. She possessed knowledge capable of ruining not only JFK, but various top officials. Her abrupt vanishing was so dubious it drew scrutiny from probing journalists. Yet the account was suppressed so thoroughly it emerged only years afterward. Gunilla von Post, the romance that nearly altered fate. Now we venture into scenarios that could have reshaped timelines. Gunilla von Post was a noble from Sweden who professed a half-decade bond with Kennedy, beginning in 1953 amid his betrothal to Jacqueline. But this exceeded a simple dalliance. It evidently delved deeper. Per von Post's autobiography, their initial encounter along the Mediterranean coast resembled a cinematic love story. She recounted Kennedy embracing her beneath lunar glow, causing his gaze to seem more azure than the sea. But the alarming aspect is this. It transpired merely weeks prior to Kennedy's planned union with Jacqueline. What renders this volatile is the development 2 years hence. Von Post states Kennedy confided to his patriarch his desire to abandon Jacqueline for her. Envision the alternate path of events if JFK had separated from Jacqueline for a foreign aristocrat. The electoral fallout would have been disastrous. However, the elder Kennedy intervened and quashed those aspirations, warning his offspring that such controversy would demolish his governmental aspirations. And evidence confirms this connection's authenticity. Affectionate correspondences between Kennedy and Von Post were sold publicly in recent years, unveiling private insights scholars hadn't encountered. A particular missive depicts Kennedy imploring Von Post to come, describing their splendid shared moments and his longing for her. These weren't trivial memos. They were fervent appeals from a gentleman divided between passion and aspiration. Fiddle and faddle, the administrative aides. Here Kennedy's liaisons shifted from hazardous to utterly irresponsible. Priscilla Ware and Jill Cowan served as office personnel who received covert monikers Fiddle and Faddle. These weren't aliases for safeguarding identities. They mocked their occupational efficiency since all recognized they weren't present for clerical tasks. The revealing clue concerns damp tresses. Various observers noted spotting Ware and Cowan at workstations with drenched locks following bear swims with the leader in the governmental basin. Visualize that. The guardian of liberty frolicking unclothed with his helpers while his partner occupied another section of the structure. But it escalates to absurdity. Ware frequently joined Kennedy on formal journeys to various global locales. Ex-protection personnel stated she seldom appeared involved in official responsibilities. Rather, she functioned as Kennedy's journey partner, supported by public funds. What renders this especially troubling is its audacity. These weren't hidden romances in secluded spots. This involved the leader displaying unfaithfulness in the country's most visible edifice with employees ostensibly serving citizens. And the element demonstrating Kennedy's conceit, Jacqueline was informed. Amid a tour of the residence with an international journalist, Jacqueline indicated Ware's workspace and remarked in another tongue. Admitting this was the lady intimate with her spouse. Jacqueline had to withstand this degradation in her residence before overseas media. Marilyn Monroe, the liaison that perhaps never occurred. All recall Monroe's seductive birthday tribute to the leader at a famed arena in mid-1962. Sheer spectacle. Monroe discarding her luxurious wrap to display a form-fitting jewel-adorned dress, nearing the speaker with her distinctive airy tone. The display was so provocative it instantly ignited love speculations. But what few realize, Kennedy and Monroe had minimal chances for actual togetherness. Experts examining their timelines noted they might have coincided locations only sparingly. The prime chance for closeness was at a celebrity's desert retreat in early 1962. Both attended an event there, and a confidant of Monroe professed overhearing what resembled Kennedy's voice during a call that period. But contemplate what this discloses. If Kennedy and Monroe shared a bond, it likely constituted a brief episode exaggerated vastly by prolonged rumors. The notion of epic passion between the nation's ruler and cinema's premier icon is enticing, yet actuality was probably far more ordinary. What renders Monroe's narrative sorrowful isn't the purported romance. It's the aftermath. Shortly after her tribute, Monroe perished from medication excess. Precisely a year afterward, Kennedy met his end violently. The chronology has nurtured wild theories eternally. Judith Campbell Exner, the syndicate link. Now we approach romances that imperiled not merely Kennedy's union, but state protection. Judith Campbell Exner professed a multi-year association with Kennedy. But her peril stemmed not from presidential secrets. It was her additional ties. Exner encountered Kennedy via a renowned entertainer at a performance, which ought to have alerted Kennedy. The singer was infamous for dubious associations, yet Kennedy was so assured in juggling connections he disregarded evident dangers. What Kennedy seemingly ignored was Exner's concurrent involvement with the infamous crime lord. Ponder the consequences. The ruler sharing a paramour with illicit networks. The blackmail potential, information leaks, safety violations were immense. But Exner's assertions extend further. She claims acting as intermediary between Kennedy and the gangster, transmitting communications and enabling dialogue between the leader and criminals. If accurate, Kennedy utilized his lover as a channel for interacting with unlawful elements while ostensibly combating them. The issue intensified to where monitoring agencies tracked activities. The bureau chief notified Kennedy of observations, compelling him to terminate the bond, not due to morality, but exposure. But the detail illustrating Kennedy's imprudence. Exner states she conceived his offspring and terminated the pregnancy to safeguard his electoral path. If factual, Kennedy sacrificed potential existence for image preservation. Mary Pinchot Meyer, the slaying that muted revelations. We've arrived at the most alarming account, not solely for the romance, but its conclusion. Mary Pinchot Meyer was a creative figure and elite member who supposedly maintained a biennial close bond with Kennedy. But her tale's horror lies not in their intimacy period. It's the post-assassination events. Meyer wasn't merely another pursuit. She was astute, learned, prominent socially, akin to Jacqueline yet with a bold essence that evidently captivated the leader. What distinguished Meyer was her mental inquisitiveness and readiness to debate Kennedy on governance issues. She sought comprehension of authority's intricacies and choices driving him. Per accounts, she evolved into Kennedy's trusted advisor, lingering in the command center mornings debating vital topics. These exceeded superficial chats on news. Meyer reportedly probed Kennedy's views on diverse policies, unafraid to voice hers. This cerebral closeness perhaps posed greater risk than physical ties. Their bond was substantial enough for Meyer to maintain a record chronicling their encounters. And this turns eerie. Following Kennedy's demise, Meyer grew outspoken on skepticism toward official reports. She declared disbelief in the lone perpetrator theory and posed troubling inquiries on the fatalities context. Meyer's doubt wasn't rooted in fantasies. Her proximity granted insight into adversarial forces, foes created, and perilous maneuvers at apex levels. Her probes stemmed from privileged awareness, making them especially menacing to those favoring unchallenged narratives. In late 1964, nearing her birthday, Meyer strolled routinely along a Capitol trail. She suffered fatal wounds precisely targeted. Her killing remains unresolved despite daytime occurrence in a wealthy district. But the ominous part, post-demise, her confidant alerted relatives and a media chief. The ally disclosed Meyer's secured record needing protection, implying broad awareness of sensitive contents. Subsequent events mimic espionage fiction. The contacts hurried to Meyer's workspace, finding a top spy operative already present with tools for entry. The agency was so alarmed by Meyer's writings they dispatched their premier officer to seize it preemptively. Contemplate ramifications. The premier espionage entity invaded a victim's domain to eliminate proof. The records surfaced eventually, a booklet mainly of artistic samples. Yet sections alluded to an unnamed paramour and potentially harmful disclosures from Kennedy's circle. And the most terrifying aspect, the media chief opted to destroy the item, erasing possible clues for inquiries. The implication was evident. Mary Pinchot Meyer possessed excessive knowledge, and it perished alongside her. Mimi Alford, the aide's startling revelation. If prior narratives unsettled, brace for Mimi Alford. Decades later, Alford released recollections jolting scholars. Her account portrays Kennedy at his nadir, leveraging authority to control and misuse a youth without recourse. Alford, barely adult, had served minimally when Kennedy initiated contact. It began harmlessly. She received invitations to aquatic sessions with the leader and colleagues. But upon Kennedy's arrival drifting elegantly, she sensed imminent transformation. Ensuing was orchestrated allure exposing Kennedy's essence. He welcomed Alford and others for beverages in a private area. Yet as time passed, Alford isolated with Kennedy touring secluded sections while Jacqueline and offspring vacationed. The crushing detail, Kennedy claimed Alford's purity in ironically his partner's chamber. A novice youth early in employment yielding to the leader in his mate's space. The authority imbalance, setting, absence of true agreement. It's appalling upon reflection. The liaison persisted lengthy, with Alfred anticipating summons during Jacqueline's absences. She concedes no remorse then. In youthful perspective, she wasn't encroaching matrimony but occupying voids. But the gravest segment, Alfred claims Kennedy compelled her to service and aid amid a water event. She labels it degrading and repulsive, scarcely recollected. When a relative sought similar later, Alfred resisted. Jacqueline's selection. Why persist? Across this narrative, a query lingers. Why did Jacqueline endure? Why did an exceptional lady bear such exposure and deceit? The response unveils deep insights on authority, governance, and forfeiture in that decade. Jacqueline wasn't passive. She engaged in a deliberate pact. She grasped her mate's magnetism and appeal. Traits rendering him adept ruler also rendered him irresistible elsewhere. Jacqueline observed paternal parallels.